So we'll have a little intermission
Yeah.
for a potty.
For-
Okay.
Whenever I hear about intermission, I think of Kung Pao intermission.
Oh, I love that
I
movie.
hope you like Milk Duns.
Oh. Let me know when you get to a Radio
Radio
Shack.
That's the intro. Welcome to episode 2 of the Cupful podcast. I'm Justin Tyler. This is Kandace. And Kandace, do you want to introduce our very first guest?
Yeah, we actually have a guest today. Our very first guest, Lauren Thomin.
Yes.
All the way from
Thomin.
Denver, Colorado. And she's actually the person I've known the longest in my whole life besides my family. So she has decades on you. I've known her since we were 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Starting school.
When we were your kids' ages.
Yeah. We go way back, and it's kind of fun to have her here today. She, moved away from our hometown. She's been all over the place, and it's just fun. When she comes in for a visit, we have to hang out.
Multiple times, usually.
Yeah. It's awesome. And we thought she would be a great person to have on today because she has so many different life experiences that would be fun to talk about, such as, different goals and things that she does in her life that makes her happy. And, she's moved all around, and we really kind of wanted to talk about her, moving around and how she's adjusted into her adulthood, being away from, where she began. So.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, so we'll get into a little bit more about Lauren here in a second. I just wanted to thank everybody who watched the first episode, and hopefully this keeps going. For viewers, we have a 2-camera setup this time, so you're seeing Lauren, you're seeing us. It's all good.
And speaking of seeing Lauren, I'm eyeballing her T-shirt she has on right now.
Yeah,
if you want to stretch back a little bit.
Yeah. So my husband makes music as like a hobby, but he creates all of his own album art as well. And so he spent a lot of time cutting out different pieces of masks that he found on like Google Images and put them in together in these like really distorted, creepy looking mask amalgamations. This is my favorite. He named it Mr. Mascot. And so he made me a shirt with my Mr. Mascot. He's the friendliest looking. The others are a lot more kind of like horrifying. So this was most t-shirt friendly.
It's equally adorable and terrifying at the same time.
My parents don't get it.
I think it makes for a great t-shirt. I thought it was hot dogs when I first saw you, and then when I looked at it further, I was like, this is an awesome shirt.
It's a little face.
I think it almost like it terrifies me more. Like, I don't know if you can see this, viewers, but the lips kind of overlap the nose a little bit, and I'm just like, oh, what is happening here?
Yeah, he has a version that it's actually embroidered.
Oh, wow.
This little face is embroidered. It's perfect.
So I thought that you would be a great guest because, as you've kind of talked about, you and your husband have really, eclectic kind of hobbies. I see you guys, via social media posting things all the time, like just the different things you're getting into. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit jealous. I see that you guys, you get into climbing, you're doing, printing on t-shirts, I see you guys doing pottery. I see you guys doing different classes for woodworking. I see you doing, you have a soap business. So I really wanted to, get you on here and talk a little bit about some of those things that you guys do together that kind of, fills your cup.
So just as a reminder, for those of you who might not have watched the first episode, as Kandace and I kind of stumbled through an hour-long episode, we decided that this episode's, this series, it's going to be about just finding happiness and fulfillment in your life, and how you fill your cup was kind of the theme.
That.
So
yeah.
That's how we came up with the Cupful title for this. So yeah, I think we're sticking with it until it's not working anymore, and then we'll just kind of do something else. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we're craving ideas of, what do people do for fun? What do people do for happiness? Because we're looking for free advice. We're looking for free advice. As parents, we don't have time right now, as we talked about in the last episode, to do all these things. So we really want to live vicariously through you and hear about some of those things that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, To start, these hobbies are all super new. I'm 30 years old now. I'll be 31 in a couple months. But even back in high school, I was never a hobbyist ever. I never had like my own individual things that I ever did just for me. So you knew me in high school. I was a huge overachiever. I stressed myself out about getting amazing grades and getting into a great college.
Yeah.
And I think as life progressed, I worked really hard in high school, wasted a lot of time trying to get into the perfect college. And I didn't get into any of my colleges that I wanted to get into. So that I just went to a local college and did my thing there. But I never truly found happiness in just trying to achieve. And I think that really hurt my self-esteem. So I went through a really tough time, like nearing the end of my college experience, where I just didn't feel like I was good at anything. Like, I feel like I didn't really have a true passion in life. I was studying something at the time, but I didn't really have any idea of what I was going to do with it. So I just felt like I was kind of in a little bit of like a lower point.
Yeah.
But after college, you immediately have to find a job to support yourself. And so that kind of picked up again that like overachievement attitude, where then I just fixated on my life success is dictated based off of my achievements that I have in my career instead of in education.
Yeah.
But my husband always brought this incredible perspective of you need to have things for yourself in order to keep yourself motivated. If you're
I love that.
Yeah, if you're not one of the very few people that's super passionate about what you do, you have to find fulfillment in other ways or you'll be miserable all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not usually practical to have a career in what you're truly passionate about. And I enjoy what I do for a living, but it's definitely not what my passion is. And it has nothing to do with what I studied. So he always had a lot of hobbies. He has way more hobbies than I do. I would never be able to keep up with him. But it kind of pushed me to say, I need to do something that's for myself and just for the betterment of me and not something I'm doing as an achievement or to impress anybody else, just things that just me and only me, maybe things that not even other people are going to ever see or experience.
Yeah.
And that really started probably with my soap making. I've always been interested in science. That's what I went to school for. And I became really obsessive when I got older. I know I'm not old, but older, about taking care of my body and skincare and things like that. And my husband, he has psoriasis. And so soap was really difficult for him.
Yeah.
And I figured, let me just try making soap and see how it goes. And I just became obsessed, like absolutely obsessive about it. I would spend hours a day when I was supposed to be working on my computer researching not just the processes to how to make soap, but what are all the different properties? What do each ingredient add? Like, I really became inspired by, have you guys ever been to a Lush?
No.
No.
Okay, you may recognize it when I describe it, but they're in malls. Usually Nordstrom or Macy's will have a Lush section, and it's this skincare place that you go, and you can tell they make their own soap and cut it up because everything looks a little bit uneven, and all supposed to be kind of like a little bit more natural. They say it's natural. It's not really. I went into the Lush store in Boulder, and their stuff is really expensive. So it makes you think it's luxury skincare. And I started reading the ingredients, and the ingredients were bullshit ingredients. Things that like I know are cheap as heck to buy and shouldn't cost that much money at all for you to distribute. And they're just getting tons and tons of money on this crappy product. So that was when I really thought I can do better than this. Like if I'm going to charge this much for something, I want to be able to justify every ingredient that's in that and be able to get people excited about what they're using. So I really became dedicated to the cause of using super quality ingredients in my bar soap.
I love that when you went to, the store and you're looking for soaps for your husband or yourself, I love that your first gut reaction was, how can I do this better?
Yes.
Not like I 100% would probably go home and start looking on Amazon and just be like, oh, what, body friendly soap can I use? What, I would start researching, soaps or brands that use like more clean ingredients. I love that you literally just started your own soap brand and you know what you're doing. Like you've researched this, you've learned a lot of things like in your professional life too, to be able to help you do this, I know. So you kind of have a leg up on a lot of people, but I just love that you are such a problem solver. Like you went towards that to, find a good soap that you could make yourself rather than just finding someone else to buy it from. I think that's awesome.
was more fun that way, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that was the turn of events, because honestly, maybe it was because I was just looking for something so much, a hobby that I could be interested in, that I just decided this sounds like everything I would want to do. It mixes the science with the skincare, but also I'm not a naturally artistic person. Kandace is the best artist ever. She has always been able to like draw the most funny little comedic drawings, but also like really cool stuff too.
Oh, you slipped the Candy nickname.
I did.
We were just talking about this earlier. I've spent the whole entire, all of my adult years trying to get, rid of the nickname Candy. My parents thought it would be a great nickname for me. So at this point, who's known me since I was a child. And it's very few people now that I interact with. It's just my family, you, and that's pretty much it. So if I ever run into anyone, maybe from high school too, they may say that, or, from younger years, but, that just goes to show how long I've known you. That's like your go-to name for me.
You were 5.
And I know, I don't blame you either. I've known you almost my whole life. So, it's wild. I love seeing like how we've kind of went through all of these life stages together. We grew up elementary school together. We lived like a mile away from each other, if that, constantly at each other's houses. We went through all of our high school years together, those horrible years. They were wild, and we kind of lost touch during like the college years. You were doing your own thing. I was a new mom, and we kind of reconnected after I became a parent. And it's just been great. I love, hearing about all of these, great like hobbies you and your husband have. We went to your wedding last year and it was just great. I love, seeing this full circle. So, seeing you as a 5-year-old to, 30 years old, this is great. And I love, I admire you a lot, just seeing, the different things that, you do in your life, and you're always pushing yourself. And that's probably the number one thing I've always admired about you. You always, you need to do everything the best. So it's like with the soaps, like you're not just going to go find something random on Amazon. You're going to go make your own fucking soaps yourself. Like, come on, like you can do it better. So I love that. And I just want to know, so with your soaps, did it start off just you wanting to do this for your family, or did you have, goals and ambitions of, selling them, to other people, maybe making an Etsy site or something like that?
This was entirely not even for family. At first, I just thought, this will be for me. Like, I'll have something that I can use, and Derek can use it too, since he has really sensitive skin. So that's where it started off, especially because when you make soap, the payoff is comes later. So when you first finish making soap, you have to wait a full month before you can ever even use it.
Oh, really?
And so it was one of those things that I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm probably over in the corner stinking by that point.
Yeah,
it's too long to wait for soap.
It's technically safe to use after 2 to 3 days, because at that point, all of the lye, which makes it dangerous, has reacted with the oils. But the reason you wait so long is because you do put water in your soap, because you mix the lye with water. And that needs to evaporate out of the soap. Otherwise, when you go to use it in the shower, it'll be kind of mushy. Okay. It'll melt a little bit and get kind of gross. So you want it to sit for at least a month. Some people make it sit more than that. So it wasn't one of those things that I could do where I would gain a lot of steam and really quickly, because I tend to do that with other hobbies. I'll get really, really into it until I burn myself out. And then I'm just
the instant gratification.
100%. I operate based off of that with so many other little things that I've been obsessed with for a month, and then done it so much that I burnt myself out.
So you have to be patient with this. Like you make it, you can't use it for a while. Where do you store it? What do you do with it while it's just kind of chilling out?
Yeah, it's hard for me because I have trouble with patience. So this has been a good exercise for me. But we actually built some shelving in our dining room area that is open kind of shelving so that they can dry.
Oh, wow.
So we put a huge dedicated space basically for my soaps to sit.
Yeah.
And that means when people walk in our house, smells really good. It doesn't smell like the 2 cats that we have. It just smells like essential oils and lavender.
That's amazing.
So it's
you don't
good.
have to Febreze your home or like put in some
Not
little
usually.
plugins when you're having guests over. That's awesome.
No, that is really great. Like, I hate more than anything in the world when you walk into a house and you just smell cat. It's And for those of you who love cats, I don't. So this is the second episode in a row that I will have bashed cats.
Lauren absolutely loves cats. So you're offending our very first guest.
I'm sorry I'm offending you, but no, I just can't. No, I like petting cats. I like when they purr. I don't like it when I'm giving them a little belly rub like I would a dog and they just sink their claws into my arm and don't let go. Like, I don't appreciate that. Like, dogs don't do that. They're loyal. They're like, oh yes, rub my belly. And I just can't get over like that attitude that they have.
To be fair, I agree with you for the most part. I was not a cat person before we got our cats. I was always mostly raised with dogs.
Yeah.
We had an outdoor cat. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a real indoor family cat.
Yeah.
But Derek was raised with cats. And we always lived in small apartments because we've always lived like in the city.
Yeah.
And I really wanted an animal. And so we did like a trial run with one of our friend's cats. We watched it when she went out of town. And he said, okay, what do you think? Can we get one? And I said, okay, let's go for it. And we got so lucky with our cat.
Yeah.
He's so easy. He had stitches in his tummy. He let me take them out after we had had him for only a few days. He lets me cut his nails. He doesn't bite me. And if he tried, he has no teeth.
I was going to say, I feel like one of your cats may be toothless.
He's really unhealthy. He has like diabetes and all sorts of other health problems. So he's mostly just like a little doll baby in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
And since that went so well, we did get a second. And he's a little bit more rambunctious, but he won't bite you. He won't scratch you. And you can pet his belly and he loves it.
So how do they feel? Because I know cats love to climb things.
Mm-hmm.
How do they feel about your soap racks? Do they try and mess with those at all? Or are they kind of out of reach?
They don't touch them because they're good little boys. I raised them to be good little boys. Shocking. They don't get on them at all.
I was going to say, I mean, between like, first off, you have this shelf that's high up. That you just know they want to climb it. And then you also have the smell goods.
The smells.
On the shelf.
Does it make them go crazy?
They aren't into the smell, I don't think.
You should just make a catnip scented one. Or one infused with, they would lose their shit.
They would.
I kind of I know that you brought a couple of bars. I kind of want to do a smell. Yes. Can I smell what you brought?
Do you want to like cleanse your palate first and smell me so that you like have a not good smell?
I already have a pretty good smell of
We're pretty close.
Already.
We're sitting pretty close today.
So I know my 7-year-old listeners earlier. So I haven't smelled these soaps that Lauren has brought in yet, but my 7-year-old did. And she just smells them and she goes, these smell like nothing. And just gives like
a smile.
Just the smile. Like, yeah, they smell like nothing. And I don't know if, she was trying to be nice. Maybe she was like, maybe that's a good thing.
That's just her like whole personality though. I remember one time I was doing an animated, like I was making a commercial for work and there was like this screen that had like a red backdrop and like some like text and stuff to it. And she just looks at it and she's like, that's nothing. That's just red.
That's just red. Yeah. She's a harsh critic. And I don't even think most of her critiques are even true. I think she just loves to kind of say shitty things to people.
Listeners, you're not getting to see this right now, but this is the first Lizzie sighting, our dog. Viewers, you're getting a little glimpse of her. I wish she would go sit down, but I think that she's just, she's like, oh, there's company here. She wants to
be part of it.
She wants to be part of it.
Lauren whipped those soaps out and she's smelling stuff.
She said, let's go.
Yeah.
As long as she's not knocking stuff over, I don't care. I can sit here and pet her. I do it for like most of the day while I'm working. Again, we work remotely. I'll sit there and just pet the dog. I usually ignore most meetings just because I'm petting my dog. I probably shouldn't say that because I know I at least have one coworker listening, but I can't help it. She's fluffy and
she's fluffy. She's great. And I'll have her smell these soaps with me. I'm going to reach across.
Okay.
So there's two soaps here.
Also reach and just hand it to you.
I will tell you, they both have similar elements.
I kind of want to guess. Can I guess what the...
You could sure as hell try, but you're not going to guess.
I'll guess a little bit.
This one you could maybe. This one, there's such weird oils that I use that you probably
So
won't.
you're
just
using
excited
essential oils in these.
I don't use any artificial colors or fragrances. So the colors I make using different botanicals and clays, and then the fragrances are essential oils.
Is this like
this is
eucalyptus?
delicious.
Close,
So
very close.
I think there's some tea tree oil in this. Is there?
No. There's mint. It's not spearmint, it's peppermint.
It's mint.
Okay.
Okay, it's peppermint. Wow, I was off. I could have sworn it was a tea tree.
That smells delicious, though.
It's another
that's nothing.
camphorous
That doesn't smell like anything.
essential oil, which means that
This
both
smells
eucalyptus
delicious.
and tea tree have a little bit of like a camphorous smell to them.
So obviously, by the smell, I'm not going to be able to guess like one of your oil bases. Are you using like coconut oil in this one, or what?
Yeah.
What is in this one? Okay,
That one is my holy four. I use coconut
Okay.
oil, olive oil, shea butter, and almond oil.
okay.
So yeah, this smells
Yeah,
really, really
it
good.
smells so yummy, and so when you smell it, you get this tingle just in your nose, and you know by using it, like your whole body would just feel amazing. Like I love that minty smell, or minty flavor,
Refreshing.
scent. It's refreshing. So let's try the second
Oh,
one.
yeah, let's hold
No?
on. I'll hold off just a moment before we smell the second one. I'm just curious, with all the research that you've put into, like soaps and like their effect on the skin and everything. What are some horror stories? Like, what are some things out there that like you absolutely like need to stay clear of? And
Yeah. It's really terrifying when you go into online soap forums, which is where I got a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of women that have been doing this for like 50 years. There are a lot of people that are my age or younger that just want to hop into a hobby without researching. And this is something you have to research because you're using a caustic chemical. You're
Yeah.
using lye, which will burn you.
Yeah.
So when I soap, you have to wear gloves. You have to wear goggles so it doesn't splash up and hurt your eyes. You will hear horror stories of people not using proper lye safety. So one part of lye safety is you're supposed to, when you mix the lye and the water together, you put the lye on top of the water. If you put lye in first and water on top, the lye will actually make the water so hot as it comes in that it will pop up and potentially hit you in the face, like boiling caustic water. People will do that. The other thing that people will do is they won't use a recipe, and you have to have a certain proportion of lye to your oils, and each oil that you use has a different property. So the ratio isn't the same across all oils. You have to actually put all of your ingredients into what's called a calculator, a soap calculator, to tell you how much lye you add.
What is a calculator?
it's a soap calculator. It tells
Yes.
you how much lye to put in the coconut.
Exactly. So people won't do that. They'll just say, I'm going to mix some lye with some oils, and then they'll have a lye heavy soap. And when you use it, you burn your skin.
Oh, that's
So-
horrifying.
Most of the horror stories are like physical burns related.
Oh no.
Horror stories, or things where they left their lye water sitting out and a child or their pets got into it.
No.
Preferably cats.
Not mine, because mine are good boys.
So have you refined your recipe over time, or has it basically stayed the same?
I've refined it a little, but I
Okay.
got very lucky that I feel like I did enough research up front. The first recipe I created has been pretty much my mainstay. I wouldn't say that I changed the recipe, but I've learned ways to put it together that are different. That's what's more changed my soap.
Okay.
Have you had any oopsies?
I'm really lucky that I have never had a dangerous oopsie. The only oopsie that I have had is, since I use essential oils, they're considered volatile aromatics. They can accelerate the chemical reaction that takes place between the lye and the water, basically by making the solution extremely hot, which your soap already gets hot when you let it sit and you let it like cure overnight. But this makes it get even hotter. So what will happen is the hotter your soap gets, it starts to solidify. So there are certain essential oils that I've added to my like lovely velvety mix that I'm about to pour into a mold, and it turns hard immediately. They call it turning into soap on a stick, where you then have to scoop the soap out and try to push it down into your molds, and then it looks like boogers. It's like really, really gross. So that's really the only big oopsie that I've had.
Okay.
Speaking of boogers, have you ever considered doing like the Birdie Bots every flavored beans, like just foul smelling soaps?
I haven't, although some of them that I make, people probably think are foul because if you don't live in like a crunchy city, not everybody is into like the natural smells. So for example, I don't usually make patchouli soap. I don't really like patchouli.
Yeah.
But some people like crave it.
Yeah.
I think it smells like hippie socks. So like some people think that they're gross.
I would agree with you. I actually have a bar of patchouli soap right now that someone gave me, and it's in a drawer. And every time I open the drawer, I'm like, oh. So no offense to anyone.
I don't know what patchouli is.
It's almost like it has a little bit of a spicy undertone to it, but on top, it smells a lot like if you've ever been into, which you probably haven't, Justin. If you've ever been in like head shops where they sell bongs and stuff like that. There's always a kind of smelly guy behind the counter who maybe has dreads,
smells.
even though he's white.
Yeah. I think I can pinpoint the smell now that you're describing it that way. I feel like I know that smell is something else though, and I can't think of what.
If you walk into like any shop in like Gatlinburg,
I'm thinking of potpourri. That's what I'm thinking.
It's not potpourri.
It's not as pleasant.
Yeah.
I'll let you smell it later.
It's got a funk note to it.
I feel like I can distinguish like the smell now that you describe. Like you walk into a shop and there's just a guy with some dreads that haven't been washed in. Let's face it, years.
And there's always a secret room in the back. It's one of those shops, and it's one
Colorado.
of those.
No secrets. We just can walk in.
You just walk in. Yeah, it's one of those scents where it's not so offensive, but you wouldn't want to wash your body in it, in my opinion.
Okay. Some people, my husband loves it.
Okay.
I say I don't know. That sounds like
you can use it then. I'll use it.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
I'll maybe ahead of our trip to Colorado, maybe I'll wash myself in some what was it again?
Patchouli.
You'll become a native if you use patchouli.
I'll smell like that, and people won't think that I'm a tourist.
You'll go into a dispensary and everyone will be like, this guy's from Denver.
He knows what's up.
He knows what's up.
Yeah. So speaking of listeners, I think in a week and a half, 2 weeks, we're traveling to Denver.
All I know is I have to finish this week of work, and then next week I only work 3 days. And then it's vacation time.
And this is actually a kids-free vacation.
Which is the first one that we've gotten since our honeymoon. We did have
4 years.
We did have for our second anniversary a trip to Ireland booked. And then what was that thing that happened in 2020 again?
I don't remember.
I keep forgetting.
We made
everyone
that
got fat.
last time. We baked bread. It was COVID.
Yeah, it was COVID. We were supposed to go to Ireland, and instead I got to spend the next 7 months trying to get a refund. So we're just now getting back into traveling solo again without the kids. We've done a couple of Gatlinburg, Hilton Head. We've done some trips with the kids. Yeah. But this is our first time outside of our honeymoon getting to travel together. So we're still staying domestic. We're not going international.
Not this time.
But we're going to Denver. And Denver, Colorado is a bucket list place for me. I've always wanted to go, and I've only ever been in the Denver airport on a layover. So this is going to be so much fun.
And it makes it even better that we get to see Lauren.
This is where Lauren lives. And so
she lives in Colorado. Her and her husband live in Colorado right now. Like we said at the beginning of this episode.
She's going to give us all of the, the insider tips on where we can find the shops with the guy that has dreads that he hasn't washed and
smells like patchouli.
We want to go in the shops that smell like patchouli. We want to eat good food. We want to do all the things that Denver people do. So she's going to show us that.
What do Denver people do?
I mean, I'm totally honest. You walk around Denver and everyone is literally smoking weed. You smell it everywhere. My mom could not believe that when we walk into my apartment, and I live in a really nice area of town, it's just weed. Or when Derek and I first moved in, we live in an apartment. What?
Your apartment? Are you saying?
Well, yeah, but my apartment complex.
Okay.
And it was when we very first moved there, we're walking through the really fancy neighborhood that we live next to. We live in a little apartment, but we live next to a really fancy neighborhood with big, beautiful homes. And in the backyard, there's hippie couples in their giant homes enjoying retirement, smoking doobies, playing Bob Marley or whatever else they think is cool. And then peace, everybody, as we're just walking by on the sidewalk to get pizza. That's just how people are.
So are these people
wow.
who, you know, decided in their 60s upon retirement, like that they were hippies? Like they probably weren't in their youth. Like they chased, they did the whole rat race. They did their
Yeah.
That's true.
And they're just enjoying life now.
Man,
that sounds
that's
amazing.
nice though, because you kind of and that's what we keep getting back to, listeners. Like we are in this situation where like we're so busy with the kids and life and work, and it just kind of gets in the way of those things that, like, you know, at my core, who am I? Discovering yourself as an adult. And I'm looking forward to those years. I mean, not that I'm like trying to like wish away our kids' like youth and everything.
No.
Like I love, like, you know, having little ones. They're about to get to an age where I'm probably not going to love it so much.
Yeah, they're getting up there. Their time, like, as like cliche as it sounds, time really does fly. So I feel like I had toddlers yesterday and they're all getting into, you know, being older and just being annoyed of us and all of that. So, you know, time's flying, we're all getting older, and I'm realizing I don't know what I want to do for fun for me. So these are great conversations.
I'm hopeful though that, like, in my twilight years, like post-retirement, I can still discover myself. If I decide I want to be a hippie and move out to my fancy neighborhood in Denver and smoke a doobie while listening to Bob Marley, like sure. Sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
It sounds ideal. This is something Derek and I have talked about a lot as a couple, because it's something I think that's more important to him than it is to me. But he's seen both of his parents work extremely, extremely hard, be really smart with their money so that they'll have the opportunity to retire early. Mm-hmm. And his family has always had the luxury of being able to do a lot of great traveling and family trips and all that kind of stuff. So I think that that's really like what he envisions in the future is being able to retire and then just travel and learn more about the world. Mm-hmm. So that's what our aspirations are. I mean, with how things I won't get too deep, but things are constantly changing in the outside world. So that's completely unpredictable. Yeah. But we are both working really, really hard now to try to set ourselves up so that in the future, we have that freedom where we can travel, because that's something we are passionate about. And we're passionate about not just the travel aspect and seeing new things, but learning about different kinds of people and putting our own lives into perspective. So I don't think we're going to leave Denver. Denver is like our happy place. And specifically when we're older, I think that's where we're going to want to stay. People that grow up and retire there stay active and stay healthy because there's so much to do outside. So I think we'll stay there, but we're not the type of people that we live to work. We don't love our jobs. Like, I enjoy what I do, but I don't want to work my butt off until I die. Like some people, that's what they look forward to.
I need to probably retire before my mid-40s then. It's just I'm like a ticking time bomb over here. I can't stop eating bacon, essentially, and it's just all the cholesterol, and it's gonna be the death of me.
It's gonna catch up with you.
Hold on just a second. I did. Oh yeah.
So, you know, obviously you're in Denver now, but both of you are Cincinnati natives. So what led you guys to be in Denver? Like what is the path, you know, leaving Cincinnati? Why did you guys decide to end up there?
Yeah. So Derek and I got together in like late college. We've known each other technically since we were 15, but by the time we got together, we were both nearing the end of our time in college. And so we started dating a couple months before he graduated and actually moved. So that's kind of what triggered it, is he was going to a college in Columbus, Ohio. I was living in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it was like a very mini version of a long distance relationship. But he got a job right out of school in Madison, Wisconsin. And I begged him, don't go. I did a bunch of research about the company he was going to work for and said, like, no one's happy there. And it snows a lot and it's going to be miserable. But he went because he's the type of person that was raised to kind of expand your horizons constantly and never stay static. I was not raised that way at all. My family, all of them, have always lived within the same little 5-mile radius. My dad lives in the same house he was raised in. Like, they've never expanded their horizons at all. Yeah. So I think that growing up, I always thought like, oh, I'd love to get out of Ohio, but I don't know if I ever would have unless I had that reason, that kind of push where he said, what do you got going on after college? You don't have a job lined up or anything like that. Your friends are all going their separate ways. Let's just start over. And so I somehow got the courage myself, because I wasn't that adventurous of a person, to leave the city that I was like the only city I'd ever known, never lived anywhere else, to move up to Madison. And what helped is that if you look up Madison, it's a gorgeous city. And there's a lot of the people that are, young professionals there. So I thought this is a good step that's not too different than what I'm used to. It's still in the Midwest. Still got a lot of people my age. So it was a jump that was a little bit bigger than I initially thought because the political climate there is a lot different here. It's a lot more kind of like relaxed and more hippie-ish. So it was a little bit of a good medium step than before we moved to Denver, because Denver is so different than Cincinnati. Madison wasn't as different, but it was a kind of nice stepping stone to decide, like, we want more of this. We want more of this kind of laid back attitude, or people don't take everything super seriously. When we go to work, like, yeah, we work hard, but everybody is kind of understanding and like chill and wants to have drinks all the time. And so it was kind of cool. But Derek has always loved the mountains. And so we found ourselves going out west, kind of frequently traveling.
Yeah.
And we just decided, we had kind of a moment in our relationship where we were both really miserable in our jobs and miserable just kind of in life. We loved each other, but we weren't in a happy place where we felt like we wanted to get married, even though that was a logical next step. So we really just had kind of like a come to Jesus moment where we sat down and said, what would be our ideal situation? And when we outlined that, we thought, there's nothing holding us back from making this our reality. And part of that was moving. So I got really lucky that my job let me go remote, and so did his. And we just said, screw it, let's go. And we moved out to Denver without ever seeing our apartment or the neighborhood that we moved into. We just jumped in and got really lucky.
That's a big move, and it sounds like it's paid off. Like we talk all the time about like, hey, let's just up and move.
Let's just move.
And we fantasize about it, but then we kind of get down into it, and there's just, we're not there. We're not able to. Maybe someday, but there's a lot that's going to have to go into that if we decide to. Just being in like a co-parenting situation, and but no, like that's a huge move. I'm glad that you mentioned that like Denver is so drastically different from like where you grew up and everything. I feel like we've brought up to our neighbors, the people that live in our neighborhood, a couple of times, like, oh yeah, we're going to Denver for our vacation. Like, we're so excited, and they're just like, but why?
Why would you go there?
Why are you?
Like, they're like, on purpose. Why would you?
That.
And I'm so looking forward to it. I hope that it just feels different.
Yeah.
I hope that the climate, not even weather-wise, the climate as far as just people's attitudes. Like, I hope that like everything about it is just like, I feel like I'm in a different place without having to leave the country.
Yeah.
Is my hope.
Yeah. I think that as part of our fulfillment in life, we crave that adventure, like through travel, and it doesn't happen very often. So this is really exciting. And I do have to wonder though, making a permanent move, me being someone who grew up in a really similar way to you did, our families were really similar, blue collar families. Our families had a lot of the same like ideals, and, stayed kind of close to, the same types of areas. I also had kind of not a lot of confidence, growing up as far as being adventurous, if that makes sense. It was always scary.
Totally.
So knowing that, you kind of grew up in a similar way, I can only imagine that making those two big moves was nerve-wracking. Like, what did you do to get past that? Like, how did you even cope?
The first move was definitely harder because for a lot of reasons. So I was more than anything just really excited, I think, about it. I was at a point in my life where I had friends in college, but we all felt like we were going our own ways, and almost like kind of our road had concluded. So I didn't have much keeping me here besides maybe my family. But what made it harder was that my parents were absolutely freaked out that I was going to be moving, because no one in our family moves away, except my brother had moved away and then he moved back. Yeah. So they didn't want me to leave because they're a little bit afraid of me not being in their little circle of
and
kind
you're
of
the baby.
Control. Yeah, and I'm their baby. And so specifically my parents, I don't think they believed it until they actually finally helped me move up there. And that's what made it hard, was family acting like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life, when really I kept telling my parents, like, if it doesn't work out, I'll move back. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? It's gonna be okay. So it was more difficult because everyone in my life, even like the friends that I did have, were like, what are you doing? And Derek and I hadn't been dating that long, to be fair. We'd only been dating for a few months, even though we'd known each other for a long time. So I think that really freaked people out. They were like, you're making a bad decision. Because I made a lot of bad decisions in college, you guys. Like, holy cow.
We all have.
Yeah.
So I think that my parents were like, she hasn't been logical in years. We can't trust this decision. But once I moved there and got a job, I think that really put their minds at ease. And having that separation from my family and from what was familiar to me helped me just kind of put myself out there in every other way of my life as well. So the move to Denver wasn't hard at all. The move to Denver was just exciting. We're doing a new thing in our life. Like we're going to our home place where we're going to stay forever. And so that was more of like an exciting trip than a scary one, because in the years leading up to that move, which we spent 4 or 5 years in Madison, my whole life kind of perspective shifted drastically into a just, you have one life, try it. And if it doesn't work, it's not permanent. You can change
I love
it.
that. That's great.
Would you say that so that move out there and that separation from your family and like everything that you grew up with, was that really kind of the catalyst for kind of just launching you into discovering like who you really are? Like you strip away all those things that have always been a part of your life, and suddenly you find yourself like, all right, it's kind of a blank canvas. Like I can be whatever I want and kind of just go for it.
It was really cool because like you said, I had kind of had the same ties, like this is my identity all through growing up. And everything kind of was completely gone that I had always relied on. So it was the first time where I'm going into a situation where not only do I not know the people, but there isn't an easy way that's allowing me to meet people. I'm not in school. People aren't forced to be around me anymore. You have to go kind of out on your own and go on a limb and just act like you're confident, even if you're not, to put yourself out there and meet people and find opportunities. So I think that really helped me just learn to put myself out there and not be as self-conscious. I think growing up, I missed out on a lot of opportunities by being really self-conscious and never feeling like I was worth it to maybe like have special experiences. So it was really nice to be able to completely, and I didn't completely reinvent myself, which is what I think makes it even more fun, is I think I just more deeply discovered what's important to me. My personality is, I feel like when Candy and I hang out, our personalities are the same. Like it's just like we were younger. We have the same stupid senses of humor.
We revert back to like 5th grade or 6th grade humor.
Yes.
Even though we've known each other
Longer.
past that point, it's always like, what are all of the inside jokes from like 11 years old?
It's embarrassing, but it's really fun. But I think I was able to then just build a confident side of me that I never had before. And that's led me to like putting myself out there to learn new skills that in the past I wouldn't have taken a woodworking class because I would say, I don't belong there and I'm not going to be worth anything if I go. But then you just learn, who cares? Like, just who cares,
who
dude?
cares?
Nobody cares.
Have you taken a woodworking class?
I have.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when Derek and I first started dating, we went to a wood class, or not a wood class, a wood shop, because he was buying wood to chop up and char and put in bourbon that he was trying to ferment in his college room.
as you do.
Yes.
So episode 3, Derek Thomin will be.
And when we were there, I saw that the wood store had like large machinery that you could go in and take classes. And ever since I saw that, I've wanted to do it, but it's not something ever actually thought to find, seek out, and book something. So for Derek's birthday this year, we're past the point of giving each other gifts because we're adults. And if we want something, we buy it because we don't have kids. So we can do that. And so we do experience-based or vacation-based things. And we had both talked about doing a ceramics class. During COVID, we watched this great pottery throwdown. You all should watch it. It's so good.
Is this like a competitive pottery show? Okay.
It's like the great British baking show, but pottery.
But pottery.
Lovely.
So
Yes.
Or like Iron Chef, but pottery.
But lovely because they're British.
they're Potterheads.
Oh, yeah. So I couldn't find any ceramics classes that were open, but I saw a woodworking class. And I said, remember back when we saw that woodworking class, would you want to take one? And I've always wanted to learn how to turn wood on a lathe. So you put a block of wood and it rotates, and you take these chisels to it as it's rotating to carve into it and make designs.
I watch videos on YouTube all the time of just people doing that, and they'll have like the wood and like that was that like that epoxy like resin stuff. Like,
exactly.
It's so
that's
cool
so
to watch
satisfying.
that.
Yeah.
Satisfying
Oh man.
to watch.
So is it hard?
I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't want to say no. It was easy enough to be able to take a class, but the class that we took was an 8-hour class. So it was a full day class where we turned pieces of wood into pepper mills. So some people like made really blocky ones. I made a really sexy, shapely, curvy pepper mill. Derek made a really
Curves for days.
Derek's is really phallic. Like the top is like a mushroom tip. It's like pretty
Was
phallic.
that by choice or is that just how it happened?
My boss brought it up, and then Derek was like, dang, he's right.
I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
You know,
Time
it's
for
just-
class
that's
number
what he
2.
envisioned in his head. So
So I wouldn't say it was hard. Here's what's interesting about it. It's really dangerous.
Okay.
And the class that I went to, loved the instructor. He was awesome. You can tell he's been doing this as a hobby forever, and he's doing this in his retirement because he loves it. But he did not care about safety at all. So there wasn't like a beginning part where they were like, keep your fingers behind the tool guide or you'll rip your fingers out and get degloved, or like be careful with the chisels because they're really, really sharp. You need to literally wear a shield over your face because as you're turning, the wood chips fly into your face. So he didn't do any safety. Luckily, Derek and I brought our own safety glasses because we have them.
So you kind of just had to use your own common sense right there. Like, okay, if we're working around this material, we need to keep our fingers.
Yeah, and with certain kinds of wood, if you turn really fast, the wood will start to catch on fire. And he didn't. I was using cherry, and I was in the middle of sanding, and it started to smoke, and I had to be like, "Whoop!" He didn't tell me that was going to happen.
Oh my God.
So how did you feel rolling up into this class and just putting on your like safety goggles and like, you know, you're prepared safety wise, and like, you know, everyone else in this class is probably like who have not been informed of the dangers of it. They're probably like, look at this dweeb. What the hell?
Look at these losers with their goggles.
I felt kind of proud that we rolled up with stuff because the other people that were doing the class, 2 of them were experienced people, and you can tell that they just like the social aspect. So they have their own lathes at home, but they come and take classes to meet other people. But there were a few women we were the youngest people by far. Everybody was over 40. So 2 of the women who were a little bit younger, they were able to borrow face shields and stuff like that after the older gentleman who was just there for fun kind of was like, hey, like we really should talk about safety for a second. So he wasn't the instructor, but he kind of recognized like these people have never done this before. Like, let's just do a little disclaimer here. You guys should put on face masks.
He's like, hey, here's a crazy idea.
Yes.
How about we protect our like vital extremities? And you know.
It probably wasn't necessarily safety neglect. It was probably more so just on the instructor's side. Just he doesn't really teach a whole lot. He doesn't like, oh yeah, I need to tell these people who are
Bad
complete
preparation.
newbies at this, like you need to be safe.
I think he's just doing this for fun. And to him, when he's at home, he might not even be that safe. He might not need to be as safe because he's more experienced. I don't know. But there's a good chance that to him, he's like, I'll just get to turning. And so that's how he starts the class is we're going to get to turning, even though I don't know what I'm doing and I need to be a little bit careful.
Would you take another woodworking class? Is this something that you're looking into doing again, or was it kind of a fun relationship, you know, builder?
We loved it. So we are already planning on taking another class. So the place that we went, lots of cities have them. It's just called Rockler. There's other wood places called Woodcraft. They're 2 like chain lumber stores that do these classes. So we looked into other Rockler classes, and they are doing what's called wood turning. So not wood turning, bowl turning. And it's kind of the opposite type of turning than we did with pepper mills, where you're turning the outside. With bowls, you're turning the inside to make it bowl shaped. So we said we wanted to take a bowl turning class, but the instructor was so nice. And he said, my parents said this sounds shady. He said, if you can't find any reservation slots, because they only have 7 slots per class, call me directly. Come over to my house and I'll teach you how to turn a bowl. I have a lathe. And Derek and I were like, that sounds kind of kick-ass. Like, that would be kind of cool going to this random guy's garage.
Right, he's probably a pretty cool guy, and he's got all the stuff, and he's just like, yeah, come on over.
You can tell he loves doing it so much that he's like, I would do this for you in my spare time.
That could go one way or the other, stranger who has a wood chipper
I mean,
in his garage.
talk about chipping a bowl. Like,
who knows? So we've thought about doing that one. Or we can turn bases for lamps. Derek really wants to do that because it's a way to get lamps out of it, because we're always looking for lamps. But when we buy a house, we're going to buy probably a little tabletop lathe to do small wood projects. It's a little bit safer.
Yeah.
And then maybe eventually we'd buy a fuller size lathe.
hey, and then you can put lamps in every room.
Oh, multiple lamps per room.
They don't even have to match. They can just be...
I know.
They won't even have lamp shades. They'll just be lamp
Just the
bases.
lamp-
There won't be light bulbs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you guys know, is Derek an electrician at all? Like, could he, run the wiring through the...
He built lamps back in shop, so he could figure it out.
Okay.
I mean, you kind of have to learn to be an electrician to a certain extent, being a homeowner. There have been a couple of instances where I've had to, get in. Like, I installed an outlet
That's major.
in the wall. I replaced the wiring on our dryer when we had to do the 4-prong versus the 3-prong. Like, you got to learn a little bit of this
I
stuff.
don't know what that means. So
I
guess
all I know is you have some instances where you're getting yourself into something that could potentially electrocute you. Nothing too crazy.
So you want to
but
do some research on it before you do it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Watch enough YouTube. When I installed the outlet in our last home, I made an office out of our closet because COVID.
Small house,
No
COVID.
office space,
Yeah.
working from home, needed an office. So I made a cloffice, and I needed an outlet. There was no outlet in our closet. Like, why wouldn't somebody put an outlet in a closet?
Meanwhile, my clothes had no home. He had this whole office, and I had nowhere to put my shirts and my jeans.
Yeah, we kind of had our stuff in our son's closet because he wasn't using it. He's a little kid.
Yeah.
So that was one of the catalysts that kind of led to us we need a larger home. And we're here now.
And it's perfect.
But yeah, so I mean, you guys he can do the electrical work and put the wiring in and everything. And so you will have electricity to the bulbs that are plugged into these lamps.
So they'll be extra fancy lamps.
They'll be extra
Okay.
fancy.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you ever do that, I need to see this. That's not ever something
The lamp
that
or
I
the
would have.
activity?
So the lamp. So I would have never thought of this activity. This is what I love hearing. This is the reason why I love interviewing people on these topics. Is I would have never thought to do this. I would have thought oh, Justin's birthday is coming up. Let me take him to a movie or I don't know. My
Could have
mind
taken a lamp turning.
I would have
class
never
with me.
thought of that. And, those are things that, I think I'm so just bogged down by life that I don't naturally gravitate or think of those just wild little things that are out there that anyone can try. So I love that you guys are trying these just awesome little things and you're learning really cool skills, really, really cool skills, and just kind of growing together as a couple too. So that's really neat.
So for the last little bit of this, and we'll probably end up getting on some other tangents as well. I kind of want, you've talked about your soap endeavors and kind of just what you're doing now and what led you to Wisconsin and then to Denver and and then all of that. Let's go back a little bit though. What you guys have known each other since you were how old?
5 and 6.
Yeah. So Kandace was 5 because I'm a little bit older, 5 months older than you.
Yeah.
And I was 6. I was actually just telling Derek about how we met days ago.
So I'm
Let's hear it.
interested to know what your point of view of when we met is. I
Yeah.
want to know if my childhood memories are the same as yours.
This is what I remember.
Okay.
As a child, I was shy. That went away so fast. But first grade, I was still extremely shy, and I didn't go to the same kindergarten as everybody else. So I remember being really nervous and just not talking to anybody. But I do remember one day that you asked me if I wanted to play with, I think, you and Carly at recess. And I just remember that I was like kind of excited because someone talked to me and I was able to be like, yeah. And I don't remember like the first time we hung out. I just remember that then we spent recess together, and me and Carly would sit under this like fake tree or like a bunch of pillows that we had in the room, and we'd read Magic Tree House books, and we'd each tell each other, I turned the page so that we would stay on the same page.
Yeah. So I actually have I have a little bit of that memory, but I also have like a different long-term memory of how we met. And it stands out in my mind. It's one of my core memories. So I remember it being one of the first days of school, if not the first day. And I was very scared. And when you go into your elementary school classroom, everyone brings their packed lunch and you have your little cubby to put all of your crap in before you kind of settle down for the day. I remember I was really excited about my Lisa Frank lunchbox, and it had, listener, if you don't know what Lisa Frank is, Google it. It was this really just rad lunchbox with Lisa Frank art on it, and I believe it was the cheetah head.
Yes, it was a cheetah.
And it was awesome. It was really just neon colors, everything that like a 5 or 6 year old girl would want on their lunchbox.
I want one on
at
my
least
lunchbox.
Me at the time. And I walk in that room just so ready, to start school, and I see you with the same lunchbox. And I was stoked about that. So immediately it was like a Step Brothers moment, the movie where like, did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
Yep. And it also was interesting that, when we were younger, we looked a lot alike. Mainly because it was mostly just the hair. We both, your hair looks different right now just because, you made it. Yeah, you made it this way. But naturally, we both have like curlier, darker brown hair. We were around the same size. We just had the same coloring. We both have brownish eyes. So, we got really close. So everyone thought we were twins. So we thought that was just really cool. We would call ourselves twins. And one of my earliest memories of you, and I would say that this still sticks today, you're the same person in this way as you were back then. You started a Mother Nature Club at recess, and we were in first grade, and instead of doing the monkey bars, instead of swinging, you recruited me and the other girl you were talking about, Carly, to walk around with you and pick up litter at recess. And we would pick up litter. We were taking care of the environment. You were always very conscious of taking care of the environment, which I would say you still are. You fucking made your whole own brand of soaps to, be environmentally friendly, to, be healthy, to the user. So I loved that. I admired you so much. I walked around and I was committed to this, we called it Mother Nature Club. We had some type of weird song that we would scream, as we walked around picking up garbage.
Do you remember the song?
I do not remember that song.
I remember say, you guys have a lot of songs that you said.
I remember a lot of the songs we made up, but sadly not this one. But
listeners, it's always a treat when Lauren comes into town, just because you get to hear Kandace and Lauren reminisce about their weird days. And there's always a song for every occasion, and they both tend to remember the whole thing, and they'll just bust out and singing about the potential kinetic something.
There was a day for 1 year, before I was old enough that my parents felt that I could stay home by myself and put myself on the bus in the mornings, I would go to Kandace's in the morning and get on the bus with her. And there was one day that somehow your mom allowed us to stay out at that bus stop for like a full hour at least, when we realized we actually had a snow day that day.
Yeah, it was like a delayed bus situation turned into snow day. Really bored at the bus stop. Are you referring to the poop bag situation?
Poop bag?
I might be thinking of a fat guy with a poop bag.
With a poop bag. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what you're talking about. We're really bored. There's apparently a snow day that my mom never told us about. So we're just circling some neighbor's driveway, and this poor man, he's probably, he's probably a great weight. He was just walking his dog.
Fat guy, if you're listening or watching, we're sorry.
He's probably, within his number. He's probably fine. We were just
Or he's not alive anymore.
He might not be alive. I don't know. But either way, we're like, what can we sing out of any situation around us? We were the most annoying people. And I still am. I still do it to this day.
Agreed.
I'm working and I'm singing about everything that I'm doing.
Yes.
Usually poop related.
Usually poop related. This probably stems from this situation. This very innocent man is just walking his dog and he's carrying a poop bag. He's very respectful of the environment in everyone's yards. He's picking up after his dog, and instead of just
and this was in the 90s.
This was in early 2000s.
Okay, still, like it was before people were respectful about picking up their dogs.
Kids are cruel.
He was picking up his dog's shit, and we make this song.
Yeah.
And it goes a little like this. Fat guy with a.
I think sometimes we would just go fat guy with a poop bag.
Fat guy with the poop. Fat guy with the poop bag. Uh-huh. Yeah. And fully singing it while he's walking by us.
So, unbeknownst to the two of you, we now have a theme song for the podcast.
Yeah.
Fat guy with the poop bag just lives rent-free in my brain all the time.
I have a lot of, and I don't know what's wrong with my brain that these are the things that refrain, but people will get like songs stuck in their head. I'm walking to get ice cream with Derek 2 weeks ago, and all I can have stuck in my head is "Sometimes I bleed," because Kandace and I used to spend like tons of time. Okay, let me back up just a little bit. Kandace and I both came from nice families, but they were families that didn't have tons of money. So the movies that we had to watch were DVDs from the bargain bin, and we would rewatch these bargain bin DVDs over and over. So we became really attached to really mediocre movies.
I mean, I go out of my way to watch some of these really mediocre movies.
I've been actively searching out the movie that you're about to talk about, like on streaming sites to show the kids, and I can't find it.
I tried to watch it with Derek's mom and she couldn't get through it. But one of those DVDs that we fixated on was The Others. It's this movie with Nicole Kidman, and there's a big twist that I won't ruin at the end.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. But there's a flashback scene of the war, and it's her husband, and it's supposed to be serious, but he just looks at her in like a nightmare and
I
goes,
think he's a phantom.
Yeah, okay, he's a phantom.
He's a phantom husband.
And he goes, "Sometimes I bleed," because he was in the war, and it was supposed to be a serious line, but the way it was delivered was so cheesy, and we were probably in the 5th grade or something, and we would just joke about that all the time.
Just like it would just randomly happen.
Yeah.
Like at school, we would just say that.
Sometimes I bleed.
Sometimes I bleed.
Was there ever an instance where, one of your parents got called by like a teacher or someone from the school because of something that you guys were singing or saying, or
like you said, this was early 2000s, late 90s. You could get away with a lot more back then.
Yes, and there was one thing that we got in trouble for a little bit. In the 6th grade, we had a slam book where it was a composition notebook that we passed back and
I
forth.
think I've heard this.
Yeah.
And there was some stuff in there that one of the teachers, well, I know who, somebody turned it into the teachers. I won't name her name. And we got our parents got called because they said it was
me. You'll have to tell me later because I don't.
I remember who it was.
If you're listening or watching to this and you know that it's you, shame.
Shame on you.
Shame.
Her name starts with an M.
Well, that narrows it down a bit.
So I remember we got in trouble for that. But here's the smart play. I was taking this notebook home to my parents, and on the bus ride home, I ripped out most of the inappropriate pages, because you and I would draw pics of penises and stuff like
Oh,
that
yeah.
sometimes.
Penises
So-
doing weird shit. Like they were like
Yeah.
animated
This is like,
penises.
I was gonna say, is this like full on? What was Super Bad?
Super Bad.
Super Bad.
It wasn't
Jonah Hill,
that
like,
bad.
Yeah.
It was much more crudely drawn. They weren't that artistic, and they weren't anatomically correct looking back
No.
at
I
all.
mean, I would hope that at that age.
No,
they
there were
not-
no balls. It was just a weird droopy thing.
Yep.
So I ripped out most of that inappropriate stuff. And so when my mom read it, she saw just like dumb girl gossip about our crushes and stuff like that. And she was like, this is harmless. And she called our principal and reamed him and said, like, there's nothing wrong with this. And I was just like, right? I'm an angel.
Meanwhile, your
Smithers
principal's sitting there like,
penis.
there's nothing wrong with your daughter drawing phallic symbols.
Droopy ass.
There was a
penises.
vein on that wiener.
No, I think literally it was a droop with a little line where the tip is supposed to go and a slit.
with a
I would have
slit
just said
hole.
like, it's a
Yeah.
cloud, dude. What do you see?
What's wrong
It's a
with
balloon
you?
animal.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to see a psychiatrist.
But to our credit, especially back then, I think we probably would have gotten in more trouble, specifically in high school. However, I think we were very charming to the teachers whose classes we had. Like if you think of like
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson and Mr. Prohaska and like all of those kinds of people.
If you're listening,
R.I.P.
I don't think so.
no, they're kicking. I think I'm Facebook friends with one.
I was
They're
gonna say, like, I feel like I'm old enough to where most of my elementary teachers are dead now. I don't know that for a fact.
You
but
are not that old.
you're not
Justin.
that old, dude. You're like 2 years older
I
than
mean,
us.
You're talking like you're
I-
60 years old.
I went to
My
elementary
teachers are
mostly in
dead.
mostly in Kentucky, and like, there's just bad
True.
healthcare. There's bad like.
Fair.
No offense to any listeners from Kentucky. I know there's a few.
These teachers are living. Mr. Thompson, I know you're a Facebook friend of mine. If you, for whatever reason, listen to this, I doubt you will. Just know that you had such an impact on our lives forever.
You taught
Your
us
speech
that abdicate
Abdication.
means to step down. We would make fun of our teachers, and like I think they found us endearing for some reason because we were so weird that I think
Yeah.
they were kind of like, these are some odd people.
Weirdos.
Yeah.
And you know, we listened to you, Mr. Thompson. We soaked in everything you said. You actually influenced my love for history. I have to say, I'm a huge history buff. I remember all of your lectures, 9th grade lectures. They were great. So if you're listening to this,
I literally just met someone last year that became a teacher because of him at a wedding.
he was great.
Derek and I went to a wedding for a friend of his, and one of his friend's cousins came up and we were talking about how we both went to East, and he was like, I'm going to be a history teacher. I'm graduating college because I had this guy named Mr. Thompson. And I was like, abdicate means to step down.
Listener, if you can't see what we're doing, we're just doing these very strange like gestures.
If you want to see
He-
what they're doing, go over to our YouTube
Go to
channel,
YouTube.
the Cupful podcast on YouTube, and watch it there.
Nice plug.
Well, yeah.
I'm such a visual learner that his like strange gestures he would do.
To emphasize
Yeah,
words.
he would emphasize words and terms that we had to remember for tests, and I literally will remember those. Into my years of having dementia, I know that I will. I'll be walking around.
coming.
Abdicate
Just
means to step
down.
Trench foot.
And my great grandchildren would be like, "It's okay, Grandma. Let's go to bed.
Let's take your pills. Yeah.
Let's take your pills." Yeah.
I hope that I forget all of this so that when you're randomly like doing your thing, I'm just like, what? I'll be so scared.
It's a message she's trying to send you as she's dying.
There's a lot of mid-2000s movies like that with weird amnesia.
Yeah,
So
that was a
maybe
trend.
It was a trend. But speaking of weird movies, that was our childhood.
Mhm.
That bargain bin.
We would become upset.
Over
Well,
and over.
minus here's a non-bargain bin though. In the first grade, when we had no business to have this movie memorized, we knew everything about the Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, or was it the one
Yes.
before that? International Man of Mystery.
Yeah.
The first
Mystery.
one.
Yeah.
We
No.
Yeah,
Spy Who
no, International Man of Mystery
Are you
is,
sure?
is the first
first
one.
one.
Spy
Okay.
Who Shagged Me was the second
We
one.
knew every word.
Your mom sewed you a Mr. Bigglesworth that was naked, like a little naked Mr. Bigglesworth stuffed animal, and the wedding singer.
The Wedding Singer.
We would sing the songs from Wedding Singer.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything inappropriate in that day and age about first graders watching those. Like they were like what, PG-13?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we would shout lines from Wedding Singer that had, really foul language in it at recess.
His angry song where it's, but it all was bullshit. It was a goddamn joke. And when I think of you, Linda, I hope you fucking choke. In the first
that's
grade at recess. So that's like not appropriate. But I guess we both had brothers that were the same age that were 5 years older.
Not to mention that like famous Shaggy song, It Wasn't Me. That was,
So that is one song that like all the kids our age had no right
singing that.
No
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
I find myself saying like randomly around our kids, like it wasn't me. And they'll repeat it. I'm just like, oh no. Like, okay, I don't show them this song. Don't gotta be careful with that.
Yeah, it makes you think all the things that we were doing at the age that, my kids are now. I just wonder,
Most of the
what
parents
are they doing? What are my kids doing?
Trampoline and underwear.
Most of the parents on our block and most of the parents that we know would probably like come at us with like torches and pitchforks if they knew like.
Oh, I mean, I like to think that we were good kids, but reminiscing here together, I don't know if we were.
I think that for the most part, we were good kids. Like we didn't do like the drinking and all of that kind of stuff. We would sneak out of our house, but it was usually just to walk around and play lame tricks on neighbors, like leaving eggs in their front yard with ham and leaving a note saying, I can't take care of my egg babies anymore. Here's the last food that I have, this ham. Please use this to feed and take care of my babies. And we drew a dead face with X's and cracked one of them so they would think one of them didn't make it.
Oh no.
Oh man. Didn't
egg
my
baby.
mom drive us to do that? Or did
Nope.
we
We just went and did that
I
one
was
on our
say,
own.
is your mom that cool?
I don't know.
Well, her parents would go to bed, and my house was easier to sneak out of than yours. And it's funny because we would sneak out and do the most innocent,
stuff. And we thought we were so bad.
Uh-huh.
We just wanted to take walks.
We would walk.
We would walk like miles, like around my neighborhood. And mom and dad, you guys would crack the garage door every night for the outdoor cat to be able to come in. And we would just roll under it and sneak out. And I don't know if my parents ever knew. They probably know. They're probably not oblivious to that, but we were out all night. We would be out till the sun would come up.
We would be out all night.
Just living our life, having a good time. We were never drinking, never doing anything like that. We were just being weird kids.
and thinking we're so bad.
We're so
we
bad.
snuck out.
Yeah.
I feel like nothing very scary ever happened in your neighborhood, even though you're the one that lives in like a proper neighborhood. We had one kind of scary thing that I remember in my neighborhood where I had a birthday party and a bunch of girls came over and we all, snuck out and we're walking around my neighborhood because we lived next to a church that had a playground that we would sit at. And we walked past one of my neighbors' houses and a man walked out that I didn't recognize and said, "Hey girls, come get in my bag." And he had this big brown fabric bag. And we were all 12. We were 12 years old.
Like a burlap sack?
It looked like kind of like a burlap sack. And we were all like 12 years
were
old.
like
so
12.
we were little kids, something that you wouldn't want, you would get arrested for messing with little girls.
You would never say that to a kid today.
No.
I mean, he might get arrested still. I don't know. We should probably investigate.
I don't know who it was because my neighbor Hank lives there. I don't know who this guy was. It wasn't Hank.
He wanted children in his bag.
Yes, and we ran back to my house.
We ran, and we literally used that as like a greeting to each other for like 4 years after.
Hey, come get my bag. Get my bag.
And we never thought to tell our parents.
Well,
I didn't because I thought they will make sure I can't sneak out. And so I just never told them. And we kept doing it. We didn't really have any sort of sense of security back then. We would just do whatever.
What a life.
Yeah.
So
Crazy
I'm gonna take this opportunity to inform the two of you that we are getting toward the end of the podcast. Like, I feel like we really hit our stride, and time has just started passing. And this is already probably going to be a little bit longer than even our last one. But I want to spend like the next 5 minutes kind of just wrapping up and, appropriately. So, so I was curious about like just kind of your guys' childhoods a little bit and like some of the shenanigans you got into.
Yeah, we could go on forever about that.
And just like some of the things that you like, what made you happy as a kid, like versus like we already got into like some of the stuff that you do as an adult. How do you think that childhood happiness like really ties into like where you're at now? Like, is there any of that like you wish you had more of that, or talk about that a little bit?
I do wish I had more of the childhood happiness, because as a child, I didn't have to do anything to be like, as long as I was hanging out with someone I liked and that we had like a good rapport, which you and I, we could just like bounce off of each other for days. We could just sit and not do anything and have a good time. Like I remember just sitting like in your basement when it was hot in the summer, we didn't want to go outside, and just like riffing off of each other and making up dumb jokes and one-liners and like other stupid inside jokes that no one else would ever know.
You guys should have had your own podcast back then.
We should.
I think we even did some like fake. I got this Barbie karaoke box, and I think we would do fake like
we
radio
did some
shows,
recordings,
which would probably be comedy gold.
They were. I wish you still had that stuff. They were, looking back, probably hilarious. We would just record. We had our own like radio type show. We would just endlessly entertain our parents in the car, and by that I mean probably just
they wanted to murder us,
bother our parents to death. But it was always, everyone wanted to be included in our pair, and the problem is they couldn't, because it was just, we had other friends, but we just had this like chemistry where we would bounce off each other. So it was just fun.
Third wheel syndrome is a real thing. I've been feeling it most of this podcast. I'm trying to jump in and have my funny anecdotes. It's just, you guys are like stealing the show, though. I don't know that we're going to be able to top this.
Like I said in the beginning, like she has decades on you for,
I know.
It's a different time, we are married, so you can have some, kind of security in that. But I've known this chick for so long, and it's just been so great, talking to you in this like kind of formal setting.
Yeah.
We would be having the same conversation even without the recordings and all of that. We just knew, we had to grab you for our second episode because, we don't get to see you that often. And we are very excited to see you in Denver in a couple weeks.
I tell my husband frequently that I feel like you meet different people in your life that are soulmates in different ways, especially since we've moved around and like left certain friends behind. We've each picked up a few people in our lives that we feel like are special soulmates. And I've always told him that I feel like you were my first true soulmate, because we met each other at such an early age. But when people say they were best friends growing up, like I feel like we were just a different level where we almost could we could finish each other's sentences. Like we were always kind of on the same level constantly. And we had the exact same strange sense of humor that I still can't recreate with people to this day. So you just have that like special place where you don't meet people in your life that you click with this way very often, but you're one of those people that I feel like we will always be in each other's lives, because you don't find this kind of relationship easily at all.
You really don't. And that's well said. And I think that's why when I'm around you, I find myself reverting to my younger self. And it's because it's so easy. And I have friends and I have acquaintances, but, I never have anyone that I can talk to that, we just have this, bounce back and forth, kind of relationship. And it's nice to, get together and kind of go back down memory lane and, just see where you are today. I love being in each other's lives as adults, and, we have our whole separate lives, but we can still get together and just annoy, the fuck out of Justin every time.
Hey, no, I appreciate these trips, and it's been great having you here. I'm really looking forward to here in just a couple of weeks traveling to your domain and
Yes.
kind of just seeing your life a little bit and getting to hang out with you and Derek. But yeah, it's been great having you. Just real quick, I mean, I don't know if you have maybe like an Etsy shop or anything like that for your soaps or anything you want to plug. I'll give you a chance to kind of just talk about that for a second. Or
Yeah, absolutely. I do have an Etsy. If you look it up, it's Barely Bar. That's Barely bar, like a bar of soap. And yeah, I post all my new soaps on there. But if you become good enough friends with me, I'll just give you soap. I don't like selling it a whole lot. It's so much more fun to give it as gifts.
Speaking of, I got to smell that last bar.
Oh,
I never
yeah,
got to
we
smell
forgot
that last bar.
You got to guess.
We
what
smelled
it is.
the minty bar and
You won't guess what that one is. It's too random.
oh. Is there rosemary in there?
The other one is rosemary.
Oh. What?
That one's rosemary. So the other one that you smelled was rosemary
Okay.
mint.
Okay. And this one is not rosemary.
No. It's a
There's
similar
definitely-
poultry spice.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Is it thyme?
The other poultry spice.
The other parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Am I right?
Sage.
Okay, I
It's
was gonna
sage.
say, like,
Okay.
It's sage and marjoram,
Wow.
which is why I said you wouldn't guess it.
I've only seen that
Yeah,
word in
I
a
would've-
cookbook, so
I would never guess that,
Yeah.
listener, that her soaps, I've tried her soaps too. They last forever. They're amazing. Not like other, homemade, type soaps that you may try that last one wash. They last forever in your shower. They're amazing. You should check out her Etsy shop. They,
not sponsored, but
not sponsored.
but hey,
by
we'll plug her because
Barely Bar.
they're awesome.
They're amazing. They smell great, and she's a freaking scientist. She knows her shit. She makes great soap. So yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for sharing your soaps with us and coming to be on this. Viewers and listeners, we I think that we've committed to Friday releases weekly. Is that what we've decided?
Yeah. Friday
So,
release
yeah,
so that you
be on
can
the lookout.
ignore your,
Ignore
the
that-
afternoon
that-
at
yeah,
work. Just kind of start
last
your
day of the week.
podcast and
Go into
get
the
started
weekend
early.
with a good conversation.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm Justin Tyler at JN Tyler on Instagram
And I'm Kandace Tyler.
at
Oh, I wasn't going to
underscore
plug my
Insta. I don't know. I feel like
we got
gotta
links for that in the show
we gotta have
notes.
some sort of consistency.
Yeah.
We do have somebody lined up for the third episode, so we are officially full on doing guests now.
Yep.
And I believe for episode 4 we have a special treat. We're gonna try to pull this off. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it, but we're gonna try to podcast on top of a mountain.
We are.
So
in Colorado.
we're gonna try really hard. It might not be as long of an episode because I don't know that I can talk that long without losing my breath.
You will. Lose your breath.
So we'll figure it out. If we can't, like, maybe we'll do a little segment of it up on the mountain and then head on back to our Airbnb and record the rest of the podcast. But we're gonna try to do something fun for you guys for the 4th episode. So be on the lookout for that. And thanks for tuning in. We still don't have really a slogan for this. We did finally come up with a name, but get your cup filled. No,
Cupful.
still not.
Whether it's with beer or with water.
With water, with Lauren Thomin. Thanks so much for talking with us, Lauren.
I had fun.
Thank you. Bye. See ya.
Goodbye, you guys.
Cut.